Hi Sai, good morning, good evening.
Hi Shiva, good evening. How are you feeling now?
Yeah,
Good.
yeah, for better. Thank you.
Okay. So Shiva, we have class on next Sunday, right? Coming Sunday.
I mean your Friday evening, right?
No, I mean like right now today this is Thursday evening, so tomorrow we don't have, right? I mean
No,
like
no,
that
that's what
starts.
I'm saying. Yesterday I've cancelled, right? We will have one class tomorrow.
Okay, okay,
Yeah,
okay, Shiva.
yeah. And remaining classes as per schedule, as in your Sunday evening, again the next cut will start.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, Shiva. Except tomorrow we have on
Yeah,
Friday.
except yeah, just for the reason that yesterday I've cancelled the class, right?
Okay, okay, Shiva.
Yes, sir.
Hi, Shiva. How are you feeling? Good.
Yeah, good. Thank you. We are actually trying new in our I mean in my company we are actually trying to implement some um, AI solution, so I have to put more work there. That's the reason I had little bit tired yesterday and causing headache. Hi Gauripriya.
Hi Shiva, good morning.
Good evening. Okay, we are on time. Excellent. Let's go ahead and get started for today. So today the agenda would be there won't be any quizzes for today. Reason being, okay. Even just before that, let me broadcast one message, right? I mean, in general, we will be having classes from Sunday evening, Monday evening, Tuesday evening, Wednesday, Thursday, every evening times. This is our general timings. 5 days a week, starting from Sunday evening your time till Thursday evening. But since yesterday I've cancelled my class, I'll be having one additional class tomorrow, which is your Friday evening. Okay. This is for only this time as I've cancelled yesterday's class, and remaining classes will go on as per our schedule. Again, you'll have your class on next class on Sunday evening. Hope that is clear. Let me know if you have any questions. Okay. That should be clear. Okay. The agenda would be today for I will be walking you through a different DDL queries, maybe a table creations, indexes creation, primary keys. How do we create and what are the different options that we would be having? And as I mentioned before, right, we will not be having any quiz today. Reason being, in the tomorrow's class, I am planning to conduct the complete hands-on session. Okay, the hands-on session would be going in this direction. So I'll be taking any one use case and I'll be preparing some meaningful kind of a little bit kind of a small project way. I'll be preparing a questions for you based on whatever we have discussed so far, not beyond that. So it's not like some random questions or something, but it is just like I'll be taking a proper use case and I'll be preparing questions. And for each and every questions, I mean, once the class starts tomorrow, I'll be giving you a question, I'll be pasting in the chat. You will be opening your SSMS SQL server, you will be writing the query to solve that question, and then I'll maybe give you 3 to 5 minutes to complete that. Once everyone completes it, I will either we will, if you have any questions on that, we will discuss, otherwise we'll proceed with the next question. Or if you are not able to solve the question, then I'll write it. Okay, this is how the tomorrow's class would be going on. So the prerequisite would be you should be having your SQL server up and running. You should be able to open your SSMS, connect to your either local SQL server, whatever the way you have installed, and then you should be able to. Um, I'll show you how to create some. database in your local today. Maybe we will create a database tomorrow. We will start with creating new database and then start writing the queries. Okay, that is the reason why I'll not be having any kind of quizzes today, but rather we will directly jumping into writing different ways of DDL queries. For now, I'm keeping it very, very simple, as in simple table creations with multiple 2 to 3 options, and then simple primary key creations. What are the different options that are available while creating the primary keys? And also, we will see foreign key and then clustered, non-clustered indexes, and also we will see how those are impacting our data. When you actually create a table and create a primary key, how does actually impact your data? Those are all we will see today. Okay, that's all I wanted to publish even before starting, and hope you are clear. And even if I don't send any invites or something from now, you can join using the same email. I mean, sorry, invite link that I've pasted in the WhatsApp group. It is, I mean, I pinned that message. You can use the same thing, and I'll just try to send you a reminder 15 to 20 minutes before starting the session. Okay. Okay. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Let me know once you know, once my screen is visible. Can someone please confirm? Hello.
Yes, Shiva, we can see the screen.
Okay. Sorry, I mean everyone was silent, so I'm not sure whether I am audible or not. Okay, fine. Thank you. Okay. So this is my SSMS in which I have created one test DB. So for today's session, we will not be having any specific use case. Rather, I'll be taking random examples, just simple queries and all. Tomorrow we will be having a proper example. Okay, so how do you create a database, right? I mean, whenever you go to your SQL Server Object Explorer and when you right click on database, you will directly have an option to create a new database. It would be just asking you to give the database name, and these are all options are not very much mandatory for now. We can discuss later, not very useful also. I mean, until and unless we will be creating very huge database with multiple options, we don't need to even touch it for now. Just create the name of it and then say okay. That will create you one simple database in your local SQL server. Okay, once you have it, this is how it's gonna looks like. There is a test DB that I've already created, and let me go ahead and delete if I have anything already. See, this is another easiest way to delete it. You can just say right click and then say delete. It will just simply delete it. Again, we can also have the DDL statement, which is a drop table, to drop the table. See, Object Explorer is a way simple one, but we cannot always, I mean, it is not recommended to use the SSMS because we are not guaranteed to have the SSMS always on top of SQL servers. Sometimes we might need to end up using different graphical user interface or IDEs to connect with the SQL server. So in such cases, we may be able to write only SQL queries, not cannot use the direct options that are provided by SSMS. So don't get habituated to the options that are available in the SSMS by right clicking and doing all those stuff. Try to practice with queries only. Okay. Let me save this file also just for your store. Okay. Oh, we have already seen the simple table creation, but let me reiterate it. A simple table creation. What we will be having is create table. Let's give some name. Employees, maybe ID, int, first name, varchar of 100, and last name. Very simple table with nothing fancy. We have just created a table with a create table, which is the syntax to create the table, and this is my table name. Based on your requirement, you can give the table name, and these are the simple columns. So again, to format it, this is how you have to actually format it. Don't write it in single lines, which will not be good practice. Reason being, I mean, it is not good, provide a good readability. And even let's say if you want to share this to someone, it will be very confusing on top. Okay, so this is a simple query creation. Select it and then say run. It just go ahead and creates a table. If you right click, select this and then say refresh, or you can right click and then say refresh. So anything works. So you always have your shortcuts over here, or you can right click and say refresh. And if you go to tables and if you see, there are simple table created with the 3 columns that I've created here. Very simple. Now let's say on the table creation itself, there is another part of it. A simple table creation. Let's say I want to create some default values to the table with default values on columns. What does I mean is I wanted to create a table and provide one column with the default value, as in if I don't enter anything into that, the default would be the some value. So I wanted to create a columns with always some default value. If I put nothing in it, then it will be always taking the default value which we are defining here. Let's take another simple example. Create table. Maybe for now I'll take another products table. Anything, we can take the employees table as well, either here or put it here. And product ID, int, product name, varchar of 100, a price, decimal. Now at this point on the price part, I don't want to see, either you can put decimal here or like this. What does this indicates that the length of your integer would be 10. Out of that, 8 would be on the left hand side, 2 would be decimal parts. What does that mean is 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 0. So decimal 10 to indicates that create a decimal create a number with 8 parts on the integer part and 90 on the decimal part. This is what it means. Okay, this is again based on your requirement, you can define. Now I am creating a price and I wanted to put by default a price of 10 for all. Maybe we can call it as 10.50. Okay. Maybe you can create another column called quantity, and which is again a small int maybe. And that's all for now. So what I've done was I've created a products table in which I have 2 columns, product name and which are not very much interested we are in. But the price table, what I'm doing is I am creating a price table as a decimal. Since it is a price, we will be having it in even decimal parts. But I am defaulting it to 10.50. As in, whenever I insert anything into the products table, by default, the product price would be entering it as a 10.50. Okay, let me go ahead and run this table. Okay, if you again the same job, refresh it, expand the tables, you will see the product table is created nicely. See, for today or today and tomorrow's session, I'll not be writing the SQL queries to insert the data, as in I am not writing the DML operations to insert the data because we have not discussed yet. But for now, I'll be using the SQL editor. which again I am reiterating, we don't use it once we are completed everything. We will be using we will be writing queries only for everything. But since we have not seen the queries yet, we will be using this SQL SSMS feature to edit the data. Now let's say if I enter something here, maybe for now product ID is 1, a product name something, and quantity this. Then if I execute, if you see the default value that is coming, even though I don't enter anything, it is taking 10.50 as a default price. Let me enter another product, def, don't enter anything, and quantity maybe 10, and then say right click and then execute SQL, so that it will insert the rows whatever you have inserted, and the default value is 10.50. Now let's say if I want to enter some value here, maybe 15, and quantity is 3, and if you see the default, if you don't enter anything, then it will take the default value as 10.50, and if you are entering something, then it will consider the same. Okay, you can right click on it and then say select top 1000 rows, so you will be able to see all the rows that are inserted into this table. Hope that is clear about the default values. Okay, another interesting thing while creating the tables is, let's take the same example. Okay, let me go ahead and drop this table because we have already created it, won't allow you to create again. Drop table products, select it and execute SQL. Sorry, products. See, by mistake, if you don't select this and if you try to run execute SQL, then it will run all your queries, which I've already mentioned in our last session. So select the queries, whatever you wanted to select, I mean run, and then say execute. Command completed successfully. Comment it for now. And then create a new products table with the same columns, whatever we have before. But I'm putting one constraint here saying that not null. As in, I don't want my product name to be null. And also I don't want my product ID to be null. So what I can simply do is, while creating the table itself, the syntax would be the column name and the data type and the constraints whatever you are having. Let's say for now I don't want it to be a null, not null, so I'm keeping it as not null. What does this mean is, whenever you are entering the data into this table, it will not allow you to add any column values with null values, as in you have to mandatorily enter data into these two columns. Okay, let me go ahead and run this. Execute. Command completed successfully. Go to your database, run, expand your tables, right click on products, say edit top 200 rows. Now let's try to enter, don't enter anything into the product ID, product name. But if you look at our query, we have given not null constraint on these two. So let's try to skip the values for these two and enter price, and maybe price would be 50.15 and quantity would be 5, and then you see it is clearly mentioning that we cannot enter, I mean we cannot create a row with empty values on product ID and product name, because the way we have configured these two columns is they cannot be null. This is the reason why it is not allowing you to create a row. So you'll have to mandatorily enter some data into these two columns, maybe ABC. But these we have defined price and quantity we have defined, I mean we did not give any constraint, so by default they'll consider they can accept null. So if you, even if you don't enter anything, what happened? Okay, so since we have given some dummy value, right, let's put it as something and then say 0 and then execute. Okay, I don't know, I mean something have changed recently, but maybe let's put putting null might be allowing you to put the null values here, but again, since we have default value constraint here, it is asking you to enter some default value. But it doesn't matter. When you put the not null constraint, if you write DML statement, you will get the same warning, I mean same error message that you are getting here. Since we are using the editor, it is giving you the pop-up with all the error details. But if you are writing the queries, then you will get the same errors in the result window, which is at the bottom of your screen in your query editor. Okay. Now let's go ahead and see. These are the simplest options that we have. We will not have much on while creating the table. Either we might be end up doing some default values, or we might be end up creating some not nulls and all. So there are some flavors of create table options using creating the primary key, creating the non-clustered index and all those that we will see in a while. But a simple table creation with these are the two, three options that we have while creating the table. Now let's go ahead and see how do we create primary keys. Okay. See, there are many ways to create the primary keys, but for now, let's create the primary key while creating the table itself. Let's create some table and then let's try to add primary key here. Let's take some example. Maybe again, another example which you have not added before. Maybe create a table students, open close brackets, maybe student ID, and then int. Now here I would say primary key, mentioning that this would be my primary key. Again, some other columns, maybe std name varchar of 100, and maybe student is again integer. A simple, we don't uh, I mean forget about the other columns, but the student ID is something that we have defined it as a primary key. Now if you go ahead and execute this, let's see what how it impacts the actual table. Go to the database, refresh it. There will be new table because we have run the students table script. Right click on it, edit top 200 rows. Now let's try to enter values here. Let's call student as 1 and give some name, and is the point of interest here is I've already have one student with the student ID 1. Let's try to enter the same student ID again and then say def and some student and some is. See, this is again throwing an error. If you look closely, it is saying that violation of primary key, as in the primary key is always accepts only one unique value within the given table under that column. So we are trying to enter the same value for the student ID, which is why it is throwing you error saying that we cannot, I mean, it cannot accept the same ID one again for the second row. Let's try to modify it to something else. 2, and if you execute it, execution is successful. Now if you see the point of interest here, right, the primary key is nicely identifying you the uniqueness in this column. Now another interest with the primary key is we cannot see even if you look at this. Let me enter some data, maybe xyz and 18. See, if you see there are 3 rows in this table, and if you see the student IDs, all these are unique only. One is unique value, 2 is unique value, even null is also another unique value. See, null again a value which is unique at least in this 3 rows. But if you try to enter and if you try to execute this statement, it says that again primary key will not allow you the null values. This is the exact difference between the unique key and the primary key. Primary key will not allow nulls, but the unique key allows you the null. Okay. Now you'll have to have one value for the primary key and then it will execute successfully. A simple primary key creation without any options. We just have mentioned that it is the primary key. Now, if you just refresh this and if you expand your tables, sorry, students table, you will see there is a primary key that is created and there is an also indication mentioning that the primary key. So this is the indication for primary key. Whenever you create a primary key on any table, on any column, there will be a icon indicator. Hope you will be able to see. I'm not sure how can I maximize it, but There is an
Yeah, we
indication.
can see. We
Yeah,
can
yeah.
see.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so you'll always be able to identify by looking at the table design itself. You'll be able to identify which one is the primary key. Okay, and if you go to the keys option, there will be a primary key that is created with some random name. I'll tell you why the random name, but for now, under keys, there is a key that is already created, which will be indicating the primary keys here. This was resulted because of the word that we have added here, the primary key constraint that we have added here on the student ID column. Okay, this is the simplest option to create the primary key, but in general, in the real time, we don't directly simply create the primary key like this. We can have this like this, but it will just, we will not have more control on it. Though it satisfies all the properties of primary key, it will not have, it will have some problems. We will see that later, but for now, this is the way how we create the primary key. Now let's talk about primary key creation only. However, with auto increment on the column. What I'm saying is, I don't want to enter any values for student ID. Rather, I wanted to have the SQL to generate the student ID automatically. Let me go ahead and drop this table, or maybe we'll create a new table. That's fine. What I'm saying is the student ID, if you remember, I'm entering the value for student ID, and also I'll have to take care. Let's say if there are 1,000 records in this, then I'll have to remember all those 1,000 records, and I'll have to create new unique ID to this student ID, which is kind of a uh, um, difficult task for us, right? We cannot remember all the student IDs that we have already entered and then create a new value for it. So what we can also do is we can auto create the primary key and also auto increment it. As in, let's say I wanted to have the value something like 1 2 3 4 5 6 till so on for the student ID, then I can also have it. How do we write the query for it? Let's see. Let me take another table. Let me write the query, create table, maybe a person's table. I'm just taking random examples for now, don't worry about it. I mean, anything, you can take anything and everything. Okay, maybe person ID int. For now, let's say primary key, this is our syntax, and maybe first name varchar of 100, last name 100. Now this is the similar thing that we have seen just before. However, I am just adding one more statement here, which is identity of 11. A simple keyword that I have added here, identity, which means that auto incrementing this person ID. But what does this 11 meaning? This 11 meaning indicates that, let me put a comment here. What 11 means is that the first one indicates that what is the starting value? A start value of person ID. So which means the person ID, hey, go ahead and start the person ID with the value 1. And what is the value of this? This is the step value for the next one. Let's say if the first one is value 1, then the second one should be 1 plus 1, 2. The third one would be 2 plus 1, 3. Go on. So by mentioning identity 1, 1, we are saying that create a person ID with the values that starts from 1 and increment by 1, which means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so on. Let's say if I give something like 10 to here, what does that mean is start from 1, start from 10, but increment it by 2. We will see both the example though, but the values in this case would be 10, 12, 14, 16, so on, because we are saying that the start value should be 10, the end value, I mean step value should be 2. So in this, someone saying something, okay. Okay, in this, the start value that we are saying it, right? Here we sometimes call it as a seed. Seed as in, it's a general meaning, right? It is the initial value, the root value that we are uh, having for this person ID table. Not sure if I've executed this. but let me correct the name here. Person ID. Okay. Hope this identity is clear. So this seed value, let's see for now. Make it one, make it one, and then execute it. Now let's go to that SQL, refresh it, and then go to the editor of this person's table. Now if you see, um, you might not be able to observe it, but if you see, the first one is disabled for manual entry because we cannot, even though I'm trying to type something, I'm not able to, because when we are creating the table, we mentioned that this person ID is the auto increment, which means auto populated. We don't need to enter any manual values for the person ID. What we have to enter is only first name, last name. Let's go ahead and enter first name, last name, and then execute. You see, it is automatically created one row with the value person ID with the primary key as one. Now, if you enter second one, and if you say yeah, execute it, it is auto incrementing by one step, and then it is giving you the next value. So it is auto creating the person ID, and also it is auto incrementing it. Reason being this keyword, while creating the primary key, you just mentioned that create a primary key with start value 1 and end value, I mean step value as 1. Seed value is 1 and the step value would be 1. Increment value we can also say. Now let's go ahead and create something like this. Let's see how it impacts our table. Maybe let me call it as persons feed 10. Maybe I don't know if that takes numbers, but what I mean is I'm seeding the persons from person ID from 10 value. Okay, let me go ahead and copy this and execute. Let's remove from here. Let's execute this. Execution successful. Go to the tables and then refresh it. Now there is a table. Go to edit. Now try to enter the values, first name, last name. You see, the starting value is now 10. It is not 1 anymore. Reason being, in the identity, we have mentioned that, hey, go ahead and take the start value as 10, not 1. And also try to enter the second value. See, it is directly jumping into 13. It is not anymore 10. After 10, it is not 11. It is taking 13. Reason being, again, we have auto incremented and saying that increment by 3, not by 1. Okay, this is another a famous option. In general, most of the people start using this identity only as a auto increment, so that they don't need to worry about creating the primary keys and all, and worry about what is the last created last known primary key and all those. So just to avoid, we use the auto increment primary key. I mean, in general, people don't use seed value somewhere starting from some random number and all. In general, they go and see only this much, because I mean, why to unnecessarily jump on in between and all? We can always have the unique numbers, which is like 1 2 3 4 5 6. So this is what we generally use, but for learning purpose, let's keep this way. But again, this identity, you'll have to be clear what is the first part and what is the second part. Okay, this is about creating a primary key with some auto increment value. So there is one additional primary key creation that I'll discuss here. Let's create a primary table with primary key on two columns. So if you remember, we also discussed in our concept sessions that one table will contain only one primary key. However, we can also define a primary key on two tables as well. It's not mandatory that we'll always have to create a primary key on only one single column. We can also have the combination of columns as a primary key. Let's see one best example for it. Okay, how do we go create that? Let's see. There is a slight difference between how do we create a combination of columns as a primary key. Let's see the example here. create table. I'm taking again slightly different example. Okay, let's take some columns here. Maybe since it is order table, maybe order ID and product ID, maybe date or date time, or for now keep it as date. Okay, now the point of interest here would be adding the constraint, as in creating the primary key on this table with these two columns. So I wanted to define a primary key on the combination with the combination of these two columns. How do we go ahead and create? The code would be, or the query would be, constraint. Let's call some name pk order. Maybe this is the just representation of your primary key name. Anything primary key abc, whatever you can give, and then say primary key. Here you would need to pass whatever the columns that you are interested to create the primary key on. So product ID. So look at carefully what we are saying is, see, since let's say if you want to create a primary key on the single column, then you can go ahead and create a, just mention primary key over here. But what you are interested is you wanted to create a combination of columns as a primary key. So definitely we cannot have the primary key here. The keyword we cannot mention here, which will be considering only this column as a primary key. So what we are doing is, first we are creating a columns and then we are saying this, hey, go ahead and create this primary key, and then mentioning these two columns, so that and whenever there is a primary key created on this, it will be always created in combination of these two. Okay, let's go ahead and execute this. Completed successfully. Now go here. See, you can always refresh the database. What database refresh will do is it will refresh everything. Or if you are interested in refreshing tables, you can always refresh the tables. See, it is not showing you much difference because I have very less tables and very less. But if you have many objects in your database, then you have to use the specific option. Let's say if you want to refresh the tables, just refresh only these tables. Don't try to refresh entire DB. That will take a lot of time. Sometimes it will SSMS might hang up. Okay, I mean just as a tip. Okay, now let's go ahead and see what is the table that we have created. Orders. Right click, edit. See, if you just remember what I've given is, maybe this is not looking good. Sorry, my bad. Let me drop this table. Columns are looking very few. Let me drop this table, and then maybe order date. What we can have is order quantity int customer name var of 100. See, I just felt that there are very few columns, so it might be confusing. So just wanted to create with few more columns.
Shiva, for this, I got a question. For this table, we can also do the increment, right? Like before the primary key, we can add the identity so that it's gonna auto increment, right? So instead
I
of
No, I don't think so. Let's think this way, right? Because let's say if you put the auto increment, then it might be incrementing this order ID, but we are not sure that what is the value of that would be coming in product ID. However, definitely it was not the case with the older SSMS or SQL Server until 12 and SQL Server version 12 and all. It was not allowing, but I'll have to check in the latest version. But
can
the
we try
reason,
now? Like, can we see
let's
see a
let's
try?
take this example first and then we will see that. Okay, let me complete
Okay,
this example first.
okay.
Yeah, I think we can definitely try that. Okay, let me go ahead and execute this, and then say right click, edit. Okay, now we have created order ID, product ID, and then these are two primary key columns. So we are not doing anything. Now let's take order date in a date format. Oh, sorry. These are not auto increment or something. Let's put order ID 1, product ID 1, order date something like 1010, order quantity 2, customer name ABC, and then say execute, which is fine. So we have just created order ID, product ID. See, don't confuse that, since order ID is 1, product ID shouldn't be 1. See, these are two different columns. So we can, the uniqueness is maintained uh, across the columns. It is not between 2, 3 columns. It is in within the same column. We have to maintain the unique value. Now let's go ahead and try to create the order ID, different order ID, but the same product. Let's give some date, some quantity, some. See, this still works. Reason being, though the product ID is not unique, the combination of the product ID, these two, if you compare these two, the first two columns, these are unique. See, which 1 1 combination is unique, 2 1 combination is unique, which is why it is still accepting. Let's try to create the same combination as second one. I'm just trying to create the order ID with 2 and the product ID is 1, which is not unique. It is conflicting with the second row, and try to put some date, 5 anything, quantity 10, something. And if you try to enter, right, it is again saying you the same message saying that violation of primary key constraint, saying that the third row is having the conflicting with the primary key with one of the rows. Reason being, the third row, whatever you are having, is a similar, the same as the second row primary key. Here, the primary key is 2 1 for the second row and 1 1 for the first row and 2 1 again for the third row, which is why it is giving you the problem. Now, let's make 2 2 as in for the second order, put something like this and then execute. See, this is working nicely. Reason being, see, this is also logical, right? Under order ID 1, we have one product. Under order ID 2, we have product 1. On order ID, same order ID, we have the second product, which means on the second order, we are having two products, which is the one best use case where we might be using the primary key with the combination of columns. See, this is one of the simplest example. May not be realistic, but yeah. Hope this is clear. If so, let's go ahead and try to. Okay, so you wanted to create a auto increment or identity on this column, is it?
Yes, sure. I mean, like,
Identity.
I'm thinking, like, can we do it on both? I think it's not
Yeah,
possible,
let's try
right?
to. I don't think it is not possible. Uh, Identity. What I'm doing mistake.
You put N before, I think. ID. After I, there is supposed to be D, not N.
Let me copy paste. It's very simple.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me put here as well, and then drop this table. Drop table. Okay. Let's go ahead and see. I just dropped it because we are creating the same table. So
Yeah, yeah.
see. Yeah, it was the same case. Multiple identity columns specified for the orders, only one identity column. So it is saying only one identity column. So let's go ahead and remove one identity column and keep only identity column on 1. Okay, let's go ahead and create. This is executed successfully. Now let's see how this behaves. I'm not sure this is even okay. Let's run this. Go to orders and then say edit. Now since we have identity here, we cannot have it. 2023, 10, 10, 5, customer name, ABC. This still works. So one
Yeah.
column we can auto increment, but we cannot, I don't think we can have auto increment for both the columns. So it might
Yeah,
be
like,
possible.
I think. Yeah,
Yeah,
because like product ID may change, I think.
correct.
Yeah.
But again, another problem here would be we might end up remembering order IDs and all. Then yeah, again, yeah, we can do that. But still, 1, 2, maybe 5, 50, something like this. Auto incrementing, which is nice.
Yeah.
Okay, at least we can have auto increment on one column, not both the columns.
I think, oh, then we can do it on product ID, auto increment instead
Yeah, we
of
can.
order ID.
We can.
Yeah.
We
Okay,
can
okay.
do that. Anything. I mean, whichever
I,
we wanted to auto generate.
yeah.
Right?
I'll explore afterwards. Like,
Yeah, yeah. Just
I
try to
just want
explore,
to know.
but we will be definitely do that. We'll be
Yeah.
able to do that. Okay.
Sure, sure.
See, yesterday, if you remember, I have had a question that while we are discussing, see, let's try to use one statement here.
And Shiva, one more thing. I got a doubt just before. So the the reason we are creating composite key is because that we need two columns to make one unique column, right?
Exactly. Correct.
So then there's no point of creating identity.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, right? It
Auto
was not even
increment.
supporting before.
Yeah, because
But let's say
if you
yeah,
are doing auto increment,
that
then there is
doesn't make, but
no
it is
point
it
of
is it
creating.
is still allowing, but that doesn't make any
Yeah,
sense. I mean, in general,
yeah,
in
yeah,
real time, we don't use it.
yeah. That's what I was wondering.
Yeah,
So the
yeah,
point of creating composite
correct.
key is to use the two
To
columns.
combination with
Yeah, yeah,
making of some sense. That is the reason why we always
yeah,
create the combination. So yeah,
yeah.
that
So if you are creating identity key, that itself makes a primary
correct,
key.
correct.
Yeah.
So in general, we don't
Okay.
do that. I mean,
That's all
whenever
I
we
need to
are
know. Yeah.
creating primary key with the combination of columns, we don't use the
Yeah. Yeah.
identity. But if at all we
Yeah.
wanted to, I mean, there is, let's say, we do not know, right? There could be some requirement. We can go ahead and explore it. So that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what I need to know.
Okay.
Thank you. Mm.
So when we are discussing about the DDL and DML, right? What we have said yesterday was DDL is uh, always on altering the schema, creating the table schema, creating table structures, or altering the keys, altering the columns, adding the columns, adding primary indexes, adding clustered indexes, whatever. Everything that is altering your table structure or schema, table schema, or database schema, everything comes under DDL operations. But DML operation is something that we are the queries that will work on the data. Whatever the queries that you are operating on your data, those would be coming under your DML operations, like inserting data into your table, deleting the data from your table, or updating the data into the table, or whatever. Those would be coming under your DML operation. So there is one interest point in the DML operation is delete operations. So delete operation is for deleting the data. Let's say if you, I mean, we have not discussed delete yet, I mean DML yet, but let's say if you say delete from table orders, then it will simply delete all the data from the orders table. So it will just wipe off all your data that is present in your all orders table. Now, let's say there is a DDL operation called truncate, and we are still saying it as a truncate. Now let's go ahead and see what truncate does. Truncate table. Okay, even before that, let's go ahead and see what are there in your which table? Persons table. Edit. See, if you see here, let's go ahead and enter some data. See, there are 3 records in your persons table. Now, let's go ahead and truncate this persons table. What this does is, it is simply deleting all your data. If you re-execute it, all the data gone. But this is the exact statement that is there with the delete operation also. Delete from person stable. This does the same job. I mean, right now we do not have anything. That is why it is deleting everything. Let me put some data here. Edit ABC1, re-execute. Now go ahead here, and then so 2 rows affected, which means 2 rows got deleted. Now delete, re-execute, nothing. Now let's re-enter the data again. Have you observed something here? Anything strange that you observed between delete and the truncate? Let me tell you. Let me rewrite the statements again. So what I'm doing is right now we have two persons with the IDs 3 and 4, and these are some column values, and then I am deleting them. All good. Remember the last person ID, which is 4. Execute it. All gone. Now try to create some entry. You see, the interesting point here is the person IDs, even though there are no rows, the person ID is starting from 5 only, because the previous last known value was 4. So delete operation is just deleting your rows. It is not actually deleting all the previous primary key references. It is still holding the last primary key reference. That is the reason why it is creating from 5. However, if you do the truncate table and then go ahead, execute it. Now let's try to enter the values. See, the interesting part that it has done is it is deleted your primary key seed values and everything. It is resetting your primary key, which means it is working on the schema of your table. It is altering your primary key. It is deleting all the primary key, dropping all the primary key, recreating it, which is the reason why your primary key is resetting to the 1. So which is the exact reason why, I mean, there are 2 3 other reasons though, but they are not very much important. But the major reason why the truncate table is treated as DDL operation is the truncate table would be resetting your primary key, which is the reason why we will be treating truncate table as a truncate query as a DDL operations. Though it is deleting the data, it might be looking for us that it is deleting the data, but it is doing beyond that. It is altering your schema. It is deleting your primary keys. It is reseeding your primary key. Primary key values and all, which is the reason why we call truncate as a DDL operation. Some people says it comes under DML, which is okay, but yeah. Uh, if we call it, if anyone asks us DDL operation, whether truncate is DDL or DML, it's absolutely DDL, because it is not simply deleting the rows, rather it is deleting, it is wiping up everything from the storage, resetting the, removing the primary key, re-adding, which is the reason why we call truncate as a DDL operation than DML. Hope that is clear. Very, kind of important, at least like from the interviewer, might not be very much helpful while working on the projects in the real time, but for the interviewer it is definitely important, because there is a slight difference. And if the interviewer really wants you to test your basics, then they'll be definitely asking you this kind of questions, because these are the backend things. Because for the developer, when you're writing code or something, it is very much possible that, it does nothing, but and the at the back end it does many things. So we'll have to be little bit careful. Okay, now let's see another option to create the primary key. Let's say primary key on existing table. Okay, let's see. See, I have a table already. Let me take some table which is not having primary key. Let's take this guy. Let me put it here. Okay, so we have this product table which is having 4 tables, and we have already created it without any primary key. So I wanted to create a primary key, as in I wanted to change this table and add the primary key after creating the table. So what we will do is, till now whatever we have seen, we have created the primary key while creating the table itself. Now let's say if I wanted to add it afterwards, then what we can do is alter table, maybe call it products, and then say add constraint, maybe pk underscore product id, and then the same syntax, primary key on. See, this time we'll have to mention what is the column name. So if it is a combination of columns, you can mention that. So what I'm saying is alter the table. This is not create table anymore, because we have already created the table. So we are saying alter or modify the table and add the statement, add the constraint. What is the constraint name? Primary key product ID, and the primary key is on product ID. Or you can give the combination of columns by just simply putting it in the comma separated. And if you execute it, and if you go to, see, I'm not refreshed yet. If you go to the products table, columns, oh, it is already refreshed, sorry. So if you go ahead and see, there is a product ID already created on this. And if you go to keys, there is a product key already created. See, this is again something new that I've just seen today. I mean, we'll have to externally refresh to see the changes. Maybe it might be refreshing, auto refreshing it, whatever. So this is another way to create a primary key on the existing table. Let me see, I've just pasted it for a reference only, but let me delete it. So primary key creation on a existing table. Okay. Now let's see another one interesting thing, which is foreign key creation. Again, the foreign key, if you remember, we have discussed that the foreign key is to uh, create a relationship between two tables. As in, let's say, for example, we have a two tables, customers, I mean products and order, and I wanted to create a product ID which is referencing my orders table. I mean, sorry, products table. So in the orders table, I have a product ID, but this time the product IDs should be there in the product table. What does that mean is, let's say if you are creating an order for a product called one, then the product must be exist before. So what foreign key ensures that whenever you are entering the product ID, then it will go ahead and check in the product table whether this product IDs exist or not. If it is not exist, then it will simply say that, hey, this product ID is not exist. You have created a foreign key relationship. So you are violating the foreign key. So first of all, go ahead and check your product table whether this product ID is present or not. So foreign key is kind of a forcing the relationship while creating the second table with some data which is having foreign key relationship with the first table. It is ensuring that the data is already present in the first table. Let's take some example, fresh example. Let's not worry about, let's take again. See, I don't trust the previous column. We have just modified many things. So let's quickly create two tables. Create table, maybe some customers. We will take the orders table as a reference. Customer ID, integer, make it as primary key. Let's follow the indentation, and customer name as maybe varchar of 100, maybe contact or maybe address, and varchar of 100, and that's all. Okay, let me execute this. So I've just simply created one customers table with primary key on customer ID. Now let's go ahead and create, let me drop this table, drop table, execute it, table dropped. Let's go ahead and create another table, same orders table, so that we can relate between the orders and customers. Table, orders, order ID. Let's follow the indentation. Order ID, integer as primary key. We can also have the auto increment, which is fine. Maybe order date, and let's say we wanted to know who is the customer for the given order in the orders table. So what we can do is we can simply create customer ID integer. We will say that foreign key on what we are saying is foreign key on customer ID that references which table, customer table, and customer ID. So here let's call it as a order cust ID so that we don't be confusing. Okay. And then say this. So if you see what we are doing is we are creating a customer table. We have already created a customer table, and then we are creating a orders table saying that these are the three columns. One is order ID, order date, and customer ID for the order. So order customer ID, and then we are creating a foreign key relationship on the customer order ID, order customer ID that is referencing to customer tables on the custom ID, which is primary key. So if you go ahead and execute this, executed successfully. Now let's go and see how it affects the data. So we simply created the customer table, and then we created the orders table with the foreign key relationship on the customer table. So let's go to refresh tables, expand. Now first let's enter some data into the customer table. Right click and edit data. Customer ID 1, ABC customer, address is XYZ, whatever. Customer ID 2, DEF, XYZ. All good. Now let's go to orders. Edit top 200 rows. Now let's enter order ID, which is fine, anything, and order date, which is something, some date. Now let's try to enter customer ID as 3. If you try to execute this, what will happen is it is again saying that we are violating the foreign key relationship because the 3 that we are entering here is not present in your customers. We do not have any orders that are created on the customer. Now let's go ahead and make it as either 1 or 2 and try to execute. It will execute successfully. So the foreign key, see, one thing that you'll have to observe here, right? There are some customers, I mean, some clients that I have worked with, though they are maintaining the foreign key relationship, they are not actually creating the foreign key relation. I mean, they're not creating the constraint, but still they are having many foreign key relationships between the tables. They are having many relationships, but they are not creating the, that is up to them. I mean, while they're designing, they might have the data constraint. They might be having some constraint which might be restricting them to create the foreign keys on the table. However, if you create the foreign key, then it is enforcing you to maintain the data. So it is not mandatory to always have the foreign key to maintain the foreign key relationship, but it is best practice so that you don't, I mean, your data will not get corrupted. See, foreign key is always like a enforcement. It is not, I mean, I can also remove the foreign key relationship here, the key that I have created, but still I can ensure that whenever I am entering the data into the table, I will always ensure that go to the customers, get the customer ID, and then enter here. That will not have any problem. In that way, I'll be able to maintain my data correctly. But there are possibility that without having foreign key or this kind of constraint, there could be a possibility that the data might be entered incorrectly or the data might be corrupted, which is the reason why we always have this kind of constraints. All good. Okay, I think that is all for today. So there are few other cases. I mean, these are only the options that we have. There are many ways and other ways to create the tables. I mean, create the primary keys. All those are there. You can always explore the other options. But tomorrow in hands-on sessions, there is one thing that I have not discussed and I don't want to discuss also, which is foreign key relationship on the self table, as in within the same table itself I wanted to create a foreign key relationship. But in our hands-on session, I'll be giving you a question on that and maybe you should be able to do it quickly. So it is, instead of saying other table, you will be referencing from the same table, orders table, and whatever the primary key that you wanted to refer it as a customer, this thing. So Again, reiterating that tomorrow hands-on session would be, I'll be preparing hands-on questions. I'll not be talking tomorrow anything. I'll be just pasting a question, giving you 3 to 4 minutes or 3 to 5 minutes, and then you will be writing it in your SQL query, SSMS. Try to have one database created before even coming to the session. Just right click on the databases and create new database. And just ensure that you are able to create some simple table. Just run the query and see you are able to do that, so that it ensures that you don't have any problems with your SQL server. Just create one simple table and try to create some columns out of it, so that it is guaranteed that your SQL server SSMS is working correctly. Okay, so I'll be giving you handful of questions tomorrow. Maybe I'll give you 3 to 5 minutes. You will be writing the queries. You'll be executing in your SSMS. And then if you don't have any question, then we'll be switching to the second question. If you have any question, then we will be discussing that and we'll be proceeding forward. Okay, with that, I'll be stopping for today.